Hey guys, welcome back once again to BMW Blog and once again to Germany. You might have seen my previous video from yesterday or whenever you watch the video with the new 3 Series facelift. But today I'm actually here at the Regensburg plant to sample this BMW. So you might have guessed right away, this is the new BMW iX1 and more specifically the BMW iX1 electric. So today I'm gonna have a chance to go behind the wheel, sample the car on both some stretches of Autobahn and of course on some of the back roads to see its performance. So make sure to stay tuned for that. But before I hop in, let's talk a little bit about the new BMW iX1. We're gonna look at the cargo space, the interior space, talk about the design too. Right off the bat, you can see brand new design language on the new X1 and of course the iX1. There are quite a few differences when it comes to the design in between the electric and the normal car. So let's just point out the overall changes. Very bold design that kind of brings the BMW X1 and iX1 more in line with the other BMW crossovers. As you might have seen in my design review video from a few months ago, I actually mentioned that it looks more as a mini X3 than ever before. So it's got a very bold stance on the road, and that's emphasized by this really nice bold kidney grille at the front. You can see it's more upright than before. Of course, it's also larger. Kidney grille, it's all closed for aerodynamic purposes, so no surprise there. Of course, this one comes with a very aggressive bumper, so you can see quite sporty, but at the same time extremely functional. And speaking of functionality, you can see that we have a lot of air vents right here for aero purposes, and I'm going to talk about that, why it's important on the overall range of the iX1. Headlights, quite slim actually, but at the same time they wrap around the car nicely. Of course, they're adaptive LED lights, so they always look great on any BMW. To emphasize the sportiness of the new iX1 and naturally like the X1, BMW decided to give the car this really nice bonnet, so you can see it is quite aggressive. It's something they usually see on very sporty BMWs, not necessarily on crossovers. So you got these lines running across, coming all the way down. It gives the car a very muscular, very bold look at the front. I had a chance to actually see the car coming from behind me a little bit earlier today, and it looks quite massive and quite sporty on the road. Now let's talk about the aerodynamic properties of the car, because BMW told me that the aero coefficient on this one is 0.22, and they're really proud of this because it has a huge impact on the overall electric range. But surprisingly, when you talk about the electric range short versus long distance, it's really not the eDrive system or maybe the battery configuration that has a huge impact on the range, but it's really the aerodynamic properties. So by making sure that the car is very aerodynamic, they managed to improve the range. So on a shorter distance, the aero parts have about a 36% impact on the range, and on longer distances and higher speeds, it can go up to 62% impact on the range just coming from the aerodynamic properties of the design. The second most important, aspect when it comes to electric cars and increasing the efficiency and the range usually comes from the rolling resistance and tires, but more on that in a second. Now let's move to the side and kind of take a look at the side design. BMW iX1 and X1 actually comes with a wide range of wheels and tires. This one, it's a 20-inch wheel. As you can see, it fills the wheels quite nicely and it gives the car a very sporty look from the side as well. Speaking of the design view, once again, it does look more like an X3 than the previous generation X1. So you can see, even though it's got a nice sloping roof right here, there is a lot of room inside, so we're gonna take a look at that as well. They decided to use door flush handles, not only because they look quite slick and very cool, but they also help with the aero properties of the car as well. Same thing with the mirror caps. Apparently they were quite optimized to make sure there is not a lot of resistance. So once again, that goes with the overall design to make sure that it's optimized for aero properties. Now, if you go towards the back, one thing that stands out right away is this aero blade. They actually call it an aero blade. So it's really a roof spoiler, and once again, it's part of the overall package, design package that helps with the aero drag. So once again, they're quite proud of this because they spent a lot of time to make sure it's optimized and to increase the efficiency on the car. One thing that stands out immediately in the back are the L-shaped taillights, but they're three-dimensional and they look stunning at night. As you can see right here, it's got a really nice opening and some really nice inner graphics inside. And of course, like you'd expect out of BMW, they wrap around the car quite nicely, giving the car a wider stance too, especially when you see it from the back. It emphasizes that width quite a bit. Speaking of the width, it's about 24 millimeters wider and also about 53 millimeters longer, and you're gonna see inside why that makes a difference. Design-wise, the back, quite simple actually, not too many aggressive shapes here, and of course there are no tailpipes. Clearly you don't need that in an electric car, so therefore the diffuser, it's quite slick and really nicely done. Now let's open up the trunk so we can take a look at the interior space. And speaking of that, so while the gasoline and the diesel powered BMW X1s get about 540 liters of cargo space and can be extended to 1600, in the case of the BMW iX1, because the battery pack is under the floor, you will get a little bit less cargo space. And that's about 10% less. So the range goes from 490 liters to about 1495 liters with the rear bench down. So just to have an idea how much space you have in there, I'm about 6 feet 2 inches tall, 1.9 meters tall. All right, so let me show you how much space you have. So like I said, I'm quite tall, but you can see right here that even for a tall guy there is plenty of space. Of course, you can put a couple of nice suitcases in here and a stroller and whatever outdoor equipment you might need, but you can see quite spacious. You can of course remove this. You can also put down the bench, so plenty of space for a crossover of this size. All right, so speaking of size, how about we jump inside and I'm gonna show you the legroom and headroom front and back in the BMW iX1. So come join me. All right, so front seat. Let me adjust the driving position so that way when I go in the back, you have a better idea of the space. So I would say this is about right. Yeah, so as you can see, quite spacious. Like I said, it's about 53 millimeters longer, also wider, both track and the wheelbase. And as you can see, plenty of space, lateral space, and naturally a lot of headroom here. I mean, at least 5 inches, 10 centimeters there. All right, so one thing that stands out in the new BMW X1 and iX1, it's clearly the very large curved display, similar to what you've seen in the i4 and iX. Two pieces connected together and naturally powered by iDrive 8. So all touchscreen basically, but compared to the other BMWs, this one, just like the Active Tourer, it actually drops the iDrive knob, so you don't have it here anymore. It's a more simplified shape, so that controller, it's gone. You also have in this rocker switch toggle shifter instead of the normal gear knob that you have in a BMW. And naturally, because of the large screen and the iDrive 8, you are losing all the AC controls, the physical buttons that were right here, so it's all operating now via iDrive 8. Not ideal, but I guess that's where BMW is heading with all of their new designs. Very slim vents right here, so this is actually quite cool. It looks very, very slick. Plenty of trim options. I mean, this one, it's more of an aluminum kind of thing. It looks quite good. Ambient lights, of course, as you expect in all the BMWs, and you can see right there, you can change the color, no surprises. You get also a really nice beefy steering wheel, and it has also a boost pedal on the left side, and I will talk about that in my driving review. Head-up display, it's also standard, so that's definitely a plus. I love seeing that in a BMW, especially since it's extremely useful with all the data displayed there. On the left side, you can see this really beefy door handle. I mean, it's something I have not seen in a BMW so far. Another addition in the BMW X1, it's this vertical integration of the wireless charger. So it's quite useful. I had a chance to sample it in the BMW 2 Series Active Tourer, and the idea that you can just simply place your iPhone right there in a vertical position, it is extremely useful versus the horizontal position that you've had it before. So I'm hoping that this particular feature will end up in other BMWs as well. Plenty of space right here. You have this floating center console, so there is a lot of space underneath for storing things. So that was made to maximize the storage space inside the car. The seats, M Sport seats, of course, bolster support, so you can see really nice leather perforated, and it's got really nice side bolsters. Of course, those are the M Sport seats. So that's the design of the BMW iX1. So now let's go in the back so we can check out the space there, headroom space and legroom. So let's take a look. All right. So just in case you skipped the video from the previous part, 6 feet 2 inches tall translates to about 1.9 meters tall. So I am definitely on the tall side. So let's look at this room right here. So definitely a lot of headroom. I mean, it's even if you're, let's say, 2 meters tall, you should have still plenty of space here. It's got a really nice sculpted shape right here. So that's probably, it was done with the intention to make sure that they enhance the headroom. Of course, knee space, as you can see, once again, the seat, I have not changed its position. So that was my driving position. And once again, at least 2 or 3 inches of space. I mean, I can probably get even more if I see more upright. Definitely spacious in here. Same thing, plenty of elbow and shoulder room. It's got a nicely sculpted door here. So once again, made for ergonomics. Clearly, it's more of a 2-seater in the back than 3, but then of course, you can also have somebody smaller sitting in the middle. You can do 2 car seats with no problem, and there will be plenty of space for both the driver and the passenger. So nonetheless, quite spacious actually, and that's a major improvement over the previous generation, and I'm assuming this will be a good selling point for the BMW X1 and iX1. Now let's go actually outside. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about the car, and then I'm going to hop behind the wheel and go for a drive. All right, so that was kind of the tech and design overview of the BMW iX1. Now it's really time to drive the car. But before I do that, let me tell you more about the BMW X1 success story. So like I said, it's built right now in Regensburg, and BMW said that over the last 2 generations, they sold about 2.7 million X1 models. So nonetheless, this is a major model in the BMW lineup. So naturally, they invested quite a lot of money to develop this new generation, and especially giving it a lot of drivetrain choices, from diesel to gasoline to plug-in hybrids, and of course all electric. So now it's the fun part. I'm gonna hop behind the wheel. I'm gonna go on some of those back roads here surrounding Regensburg, and I'm gonna see how the car drives, so stay tuned. So this particular model, it's the BMW iX1 xDrive 30e. So by having the xDrive in the name, it clearly means that there are 2 motors powering the BMW iX1. As you would have guessed, one at the front and one in the back. But in the standard mode, actually there is more power going to the front motor than to the rear. Yet, in certain driving situations, the system will adjust the power distribution from front to back where it's needed. So if you're going for a very sporty ride on some of the back roads, for example here surrounding Regensburg, and you would need a lot more power to the rear, the system will automatically adjust that and distribute the power where you actually need it in that particular driving situation. But overall, this is an xDrive system as you know it from all the other BMWs. Let's talk about the specs a little bit. So the power in the BMW iX1 xDrive 30e comes out to about 313 horsepower and 494 Newton meters of torque. And that's enough to take this particular car from 0 to 100 kilometers per hour or 0 to 62 miles per hour in about 5.6 seconds. Top speed, as with most BMW electric cars, it is limited. So you're only getting up to 180 kilometers per hour. That's your top speed. And of course, that's mainly to save energy. Of course, when it comes to electric cars, it is all about the range. So BMW says that on the WLTP cycle, this car, it's rated in between 414 and 440 kilometers. Of course, that gap, it's significant, but it's mainly due to the different tire combinations available for the BMW iX1. Speaking of the entire BMW X1 lineup, the wheel ranges from 17 to 20 inch, and I believe this particular one that we're riding on right now sits on 18 inch. What's actually quite interesting about the BMW iX1 and also about the regular BMW X1 is that a lot of the efficiency comes actually from aerodynamics. So you would think that, you're getting more efficiency out of a highly optimized eDrive, for example, but we've just learned today that when it comes to short distances, the aerodynamics play about 36% role in the overall efficiency on short distances, and even up to about 62% in long distances. So that's a huge impact on the overall range just coming from the aerodynamics properties of the car. So naturally, BMW has spent quite some time making sure they optimize every single part on the exterior design of the iX1 and of course of the regular X1.
Now, in certain situations, for example, in short distances, the rolling resistance, the tire choice plays the second most important role. So speaking of the battery in the BMW iX1, the usable capacity is 64.7 kilowatt hours. So that's the net energy basically in the battery pack. It still uses the prismatic cells similar to what you've seen in the BMW i3, but clearly this is the eDrive Gen 5. BMW i3 was using eDrive Gen 4. The BMW iX1 comes with two different driving modes. So you have a standard mode which delivers up to 200 kilowatts of power, but then there is also a boost mode that can give you some additional bursts of power for short distances, and that total power output is about 230 kilowatts. Naturally, when it comes to electric cars, recuperation, brake regeneration, it is extremely important. In the BMW iX1, it's rated at 140 kilowatts. So that's the maximum regen that you can get in the car from a combination of different systems. So the BMW iX1 has three different levels of charging. So you can have an 11 kilowatts charging. There is an optional 22 kilowatts from a wall box. And then of course you have the DC fast charging. So let's focus on the second level. So with 22 kilowatts charger, you can recharge the battery in about 3 hours and 45 minutes. Yet, if you're using the DC fast charging rated at 130 kilowatts, it takes you about 29 minutes to recharge from 0 to 80%, or if you plug in on a DC fast charge, you can get about 120 kilometers, 75 miles in just 10 minutes. So I call that actually snack charging, because you can go to a mall or maybe you go shopping and you only have a few minutes. You can always just snack charge, plug in the DC fast charge, and you're still gonna get plenty of power to get around probably for most of the day. You know, we've seen plenty of studies where the daily driving experience for a lot of people with electric cars, it's in the tens of miles range. So clearly, even if you charge for 10 minutes and you're getting 75 miles of range, that should be plenty to take you through your day. We just took a sharper exit corner here and we had a chance to kind of see how the car feels on the road. And first feeling that it's extremely balanced. So that's a combination of the front and rear motor distribution, but then of course you have the battery pack that sits in the floor of the car, and that gives the car a really nice balance. Of course, power delivery, it's almost instant, if not instant. You're getting a lot of power by just simply flooring the, let's call it a gas pedal. I'm right now using the adaptive regen. So basically it's an automated system that will use a series of different factors, from the GPS data to the navigation, to the traffic in front of you, and it will choose for you basically the proper regen mode. And basically that brings me to the MIDE modes. So the car comes with different MIDE modes. Basically, it's a personalization setup that you can have for your BMW iX1. And right now, I was told to switch over to Sport. And just like the regular gasoline or diesel-powered BMWs, it kind of gives you a sharper driving feeling. And you can see I'm going quite fast to those corners. It's a little bit slippery. So speaking of the Sport mode, clearly getting a sharper steering, sharper suspension. I can tell that the adaptive suspension has been tuned up a little bit, just like you'd expect in any other BMWs.
You can also try out the power boost button. So it's on the left side of your steering wheel, just shortly one push on the pedal, and it will activate you the power boost mode. You will find a 10 seconds counter on your main screen in front of you. And the boost mode activates you additionally 30 kilowatts of power for 10 seconds.
All right, so I'm not sure if you're able to hear that, but basically there is a shift pedal on the left side of the steering. It says boost on it. You can't really miss that. If you hit that, you will get a counter on the center console right here on the center dashboard, and it's going to come from 10 to 0. Basically, you have 10 seconds of boost power that you can use. So basically the boost mode, it's exactly what you would expect. So if you need to overtake quickly, if you need short bursts of power for a limited amount of time, then you just hit that and the car will give you that 30 extra kilowatts. Extremely useful, especially if you want to overtake, like I said, or if you want to go fast from a, let's say, even a stoplight. In this video, you're going to see at some point that I'm going to be using that feature to do a 0 to 100 kilometers per hour test, 0 to 62 miles per hour. Premium-wise, I've said it in my previous BMW X1 videos, it is definitely a step up from the previous generation. A lot of the criticism came actually from the interior quality of the car. So with this third generation BMW X1 and of course the iX1, BMW really stepped it up. So once you step inside this car, you will see the premium materials. So you're really getting the latest tech that you might have seen also in the BMW iX, even in the BMW i7. That includes plenty of driving assistant features, parking, even a trailer assist. So the car, it is fully loaded when it comes to tech. The centerpiece, clearly the curved display. Again, no surprises there. Most of the BMWs today feature this particular screen. Two different screens connected, 12.5 and 14.9, basically forms a really nice curved display powered by iDrive 8. And because of this large screen display and iDrive 8, you are losing the physical buttons right here. So same as the car that we tested, previously, the new 3 Series facelift, the physical buttons have been removed. You're getting a cleaner design at the cost of having to implement some of the functions inside iDrive 8. Once again, it takes some time to get used to it because you have to perform certain functions like adjusting the AC through 2-3 different clicks in iDrive 8. I guess the one thing inside the BMW iX1 that I'm still struggling with, it will be the lack of an iDrive knob. I am so used to using that knob to control the iDrive system, and unfortunately in the BMW X1 and also in the 2 Series Active Tourer, for example, the iDrive knob has been removed. So right now all the functions have to be controlled via the touch screen or voice commands. So I found myself actually today quite a few times trying to find the iDrive knob to go through the menu options, and I realized it's not there. So I always have to kind of keep my eyes on the road at the same time while operating the iDrive system, which is not always easy. But I guess that's the option that BMW has made when it comes to these cars. So after driving a little bit, on these curvy roads and out through little villages here around Regensburg, Germany, I had a chance to really sample that adaptive regen. So once again, it works exactly in like the i4, for example. So it will adjust the regen power. I can feel it right now. I have a car in front of me, and as soon as the system detects that, it goes into a coasting mode. So basically, it will decide the regen level for you. So once again, I'm driving through some small villages here around Regensburg, and I'm still in sport mode. The steering is extremely sharp, yet the car, it's easy to maneuver inside city centers. Once again, it is a typical electric car behavior. This is one reason why I do enjoy my BMW i3. It is easy to maneuver inside cities. It's very comfortable to drive, and it can be even more comfortable if you switch back to, let's say, more of a comfort mode. Also, there is not a lot of road noise coming from the tires. So basically, it's a whole package that you're getting with the iX1. The cabin is really well isolated, but at the same time, there is not a lot of road noise coming from the tires. Once again, I'm riding on 18-inch wheels and tires. Just like the BMW i4 and iX, you are also getting a one-pedal brake regen mode. And to activate that, you'll simply go onto the toggle switch right here, and you're gonna go into the B mode. So basically the B mode, it's the most aggressive brake regen mode. It is best to use that in stop and go traffic, or if you're driving in city centers. This is when you're going to get the most regen into the battery and you're gonna extend your range. So once again, you can change the different regen modes if you go into the driver assistant features. You can pick from a low, moderate, high, and adaptive, of course. I guess the modes are pretty self-explanatory, but there is one thing worth mentioning. If you do choose the adaptive regeneration mode, that will allow coasting, even though you do need to use the brake at times. Now, if you switch over to the high regen,
that will allow for one pedal driving, but without the coasting feature. To get the best efficiency out of the battery and out of the BMW iX1, clearly coasting is better than regen. But at the same time, a lot of people tend to get car sick when they use the one pedal feel in any electric car. So in my case, I would say the adaptive mode works best. And I've had a chance to really sample this in the iX1, of course, the i4, iX, and even an i7 prototype. With the adaptive mode, the ride seems to be a little bit smoother. There is less friction coming from the brake, clearly. So of course, if you want to have a more smooth and seamless driving experience, I would say the adaptive regen, it's the best mode for you. Of course, the one benefit of the one pedal driving is the fact that you can probably extend the life of your braking system. So that's one thing that I've noticed in my BMW i3, for example, even though I've owned one of them for over 3 years and drove quite a few miles on it, there was no need for me to replace any of the brake pads. So I'm on an Autobahn stretch right now, so I have a chance to really sample the car in a normal driving situation, not going too sporty. Of course, at the end of this drive, I'm gonna take a look at the efficiency that I achieved. I pushed the car a little bit so it won't be extremely accurate to maybe a normal driving situation, but it will still be within a normal range. Once again, top speed 180 kilometers per hour. I've only reached about 160. And of course, I could see the battery energy being sucked out of it quite quickly. Clearly, if you sustain high speeds, especially on the German Autobahn, you're not going to get the best efficiency out of the car. But nonetheless, you can definitely push the car if you need to. Also, you can also sample the boost mode on the Autobahn as well. It's only up to 10 seconds, but if you want to overtake quickly, simply hit that boost pedal right there. Starts counting down to 0, and it also gives some really nice graphics on both the head-up display and the central unit right here. So overall, BMW iX1, it's exactly what you'd expect to see from this Gen 5 e-drive the BMW offers, and especially from a BMW X1 type of car. Once again, I am a little bit disappointed that we won't be getting this car in the United States. Unfortunately, it's not going to be available there, at least not at market launch. I'm not sure if they will change their mind and bring the car in the future, but I definitely see the BMW iX1 as being a worthy replacement of the BMW i3. And even though I truly enjoy the i4 and especially the iX, in my particular case, the BMW iX1 would be the much better choice, mostly because it will come with a more affordable price than the iX. For example, we only getting the iX50 and iXM60 in the US. One of them starts in the 70,000 range, I believe, and nicely spec'd over 80,000. And so they're quite expensive. And even though I love driving them and they're extremely fun, I would still love to have an iX1 option. The small to medium size electric crossover market in the United States is still not crowded when it comes to different offerings. So a BMW iX1 model, I feel like it would fit perfectly there. Of course, with the new IRA bill that has just passed, it will have to come with a competitive price in order to qualify for some subsidies. So I'm not sure if the price point had anything to do with the decision not to bring the car to the US, or maybe the range wasn't adequate enough for US customers. Nonetheless, I'm hoping that that will change in the future. In the meantime, I guess I will have to enjoy the BMW iX1 in different markets. And naturally, if you live in Europe or in Germany, for example, you're more inclined to get an iX1 than an iX, maybe just because of its size. Clearly, the roads are a bit more narrower than you would get in the US. And so I definitely predict the BMW iX1 to be a quite popular choice here in Europe. The question will come down if it will be more popular than, let's say, a plug-in hybrid or a gasoline or diesel engine, but I guess time will tell which one becomes the more popular option. So if you live in one of those countries, I definitely encourage you to go sample the BMW iX1 when it becomes available. It is at least worthy of a test drive, if not more. And I'm assuming we will see a lot more real-life reviews in the future. We will try to get our hands on the BMW iX1 for a longer test drive where we can sample the car as normal people, because as a journalist, we often try to push the car to their limit to find out about the driving dynamics, but normal customers don't really do that. So I would love to do a test, maybe like a week-long test, to see
What's the maximum efficiency that I can squeeze out of the iX1? So then maybe I can have a better idea how efficient this Generation 5 eDrive really is. But before I let you go, please let me know in the comments below if you would like a BMW iX1 electric crossover, or you're still an old school gearhead that enjoys the sound of a diesel or petrol engine. As always, I thank you for your support, and please subscribe to our channel, hit that notification bell. We're trying to grow the channel a lot faster so we can put out even more videos out there. We're doing a pretty good job right now, as you might have seen, and we have a lot of videos coming out every single week. For now, thank you, and I'll see you in the next one.